My name is Chuck, and I graduated from the University of California, Berkeley in 2016. Looking back, I can say that my time in college was pretty much perfect. I was in a fraternity, balanced my studies and social activities well, and had enough time to pursue the girls I liked. I even met my fiancée, Rosie, at Berkeley. However, if you asked me how I felt as a freshman, the answer would be very different. As a freshman, I was quickly thrown into the whirlwind of developing my career and planning for the future. The pressure at Berkeley was intense, and if you wanted to succeed in the business world, building a professional image on LinkedIn was a must. I remember feeling stressed about creating a professional image online, as if my future depended on the people I connected with and the skills I listed. After a while, I received a message in my inbox. To my surprise, it was not a message from a bot, but an invitation for an interview from a reputable business. I read the message several times to make sure it was not a mistake. After further discussion, I was invited to my first interview. I spent hours researching the company and preparing thoroughly for the interview. The person who contacted me was a man named Arman Slawinski, and it was a name I would never forget. I tried to find him on LinkedIn, but strangely, I couldn't find any trace. No professional profile, no social media, nothing. Although I was a little skeptical, I decided to go to the interview because I thought he might be a private person. On the day of the interview, I told my close friend Riley about this. Riley felt very strange when he heard about it and advised me to be careful. He also offered to drive me there because he had nothing to do. I thanked Riley and accepted his offer. This turned out to be a lifesaver. We left the dormitory at around 4 p.m. After 20 minutes, I asked Riley to drop me off a little further away because I didn't want the interviewer to see me with someone. Riley smiled and agreed. Then he pulled out a large bag of marijuana from the dashboard and said he would wait for me there. I smiled and got out of the car. I walked a short distance to the location and suddenly stopped dead. In front of me was a deserted construction site. There was no coffee shop. What was even stranger was that the area was not a residential area at all. All the buildings looked like they were closed or private establishments. I checked the address on my phone and confirmed that I was in the right place. I was feeling a little confused at that moment, but before I could call Riley, a voice rang out behind me. "Chuck!" I turned around and saw a tall man wearing a luxurious black suit. My anxiety immediately disappeared because I thought it was all a misunderstanding. The man approached me and introduced himself as Arman. However, instead of taking me to the cafe as agreed, he pointed to the matte black Bentley parked next to me and told me to get in the car to find another place. While I was still hesitating, he got in the car, left the door open, and said loudly, "The front seat is yours." Feeling a little confused but also curious, I decided to walk around the car to take a closer look. But when I glanced into the back seat, I was stunned to see another man lying on the floor of the car, holding something long and metallic. At that moment, fear surged through me like a huge wave. This was clearly a trap. I turned and ran immediately. I heard my name being called from behind, but I didn't dare to look back. As I ran, the sound of tires screeching on the road made me panic even more. I looked back and saw that the Bentley had turned around and was chasing me. I knew I couldn't outrun a car, but in this area there was no place for me to hide. At the next intersection, I decided to turn right, hoping to find shelter. And like a miracle, I saw a fire ladder of a building, low enough for me to jump onto. Gathering all my strength, I jumped up and grabbed the ladder, climbing up in a panic. I looked down and saw that the Bentley had stopped right at my feet. I held my breath, trying to stay quiet. After a few tense minutes that felt like an eternity, the car suddenly turned around and disappeared from my sight. I couldn't believe I had survived. I immediately called Riley, screaming into the phone about what had happened. Riley found me, and we left in silence. Although I tried to forget, those horrifying images still flashed in my mind every time I thought about them. If it weren't for Riley, I probably wouldn't be able to tell this story. This happened recently when my family and I drove to college to help me move into my dorm. As a freshman, I was excited to start my new life. When I arrived, I found out that I would be living in a Jack and Jill room, meaning that my room and another room would share a bathroom. That meant I would be living with 3 other people. I already knew one of them. We met at orientation and got to know each other. However, my roommate, Diora, is the one I want to talk about. Before moving in, I got Diora's contact information and we messaged each other on Instagram. But the way he responded to messages was very dry, and looking at his profile, I felt something was wrong. His profile looked like someone you see on funny Discord mod clips on Instagram or TikTok. When I met him, my first impression of him confirmed my worries. Diora looked exactly like a Discord mod, except he was skinny and about the same height as me. His skin was pale, his lips were pale, and he only had a thin mustache on his face. When I tried to talk to him, Diora stuttered and tried to end the conversation as soon as possible. He even said that music could not fill his empty cup, a statement that made my skin crawl. What was even stranger was how Diora acted when he played games. When playing games on PS5, he did not simply play as usual. Diora often made strange noises, shook his body violently, and giggled every time he pressed buttons repeatedly. Sometimes he would put his feet in the drawers under the table and pull them towards him while shaking, and he would whisper something twice in an unusual tone. He stayed in his room most of the time, never did his homework, and his behavior made me shiver every time I tried to sleep. One night, I went out with some new friends in the dorm and came back to my room late, around 1 a.m. When I opened the door, I saw Diora sleeping on the bed, so I quietly walked in, but suddenly I felt a shiver and turned around. Diora was staring at me with a faint smile on her face. I screamed in fear and asked, "What the hell are you doing, Diora?" He just chuckled and turned to face the wall. This happened 3 more times over the next few weeks. I tried to ask to change rooms, but the school had no more vacancies and I was stuck with Diora. 3 months passed, and I thought I had gotten used to his weirdness. One day after school, I came back to my room earlier than planned and found Diora standing up in a panic when I opened the door. He asked why I was home early, even though I was actually home later than usual. I noticed a small box on his desk, but when I asked about it, he just said it was personal and not important. I didn't pay much attention to it until I noticed that my iPhone charger and scissors were missing. When I asked Diora, he returned the scissors to me, but when he handed me the phone charger, the small box accidentally fell to the ground. What I saw inside made me freeze. A sticky note with my name on it, a plastic box containing my eyelashes, a pair of glasses, a pair of socks, and a candid photo of me in a playful moment. I yelled and told Diora to leave the room immediately. I contacted the dormitory administrator, RA, and asked him to meet me the next day. I hid the box in the laundry basket as evidence. However, after an hour, Diora returned to the room. I told him not to touch me or talk to me again. That night, I tried to stay awake, but eventually I got tired and fell asleep. The next morning, when I woke up, I found that Diora had left the room, but the box was gone. I searched everywhere desperately, but couldn't find it. When the dorm manager came, I told him the whole story, but without the box as evidence, he couldn't do anything. I felt like I was losing control and became obsessed with what had happened. It was now the 2nd semester, and I still had to live with Diora. He promised that he would never do it again, and that if he did, he would voluntarily move out. Even so, I was very upset and tried to avoid him as much as possible. I had sleepless nights and constant fear. I kept wondering why Diora took my things and what they meant, especially the eyelashes in the box, and why he put my name on them. That remains a terrifying mystery. It happened during Halloween 2019 when I was a freshman at a large university. My school was famous for its crazy Halloween parties, which lasted for a whole week with all kinds of costumes and no shortage of fun and mischief. It was Saturday, the day the school's football team had just won an important match, so the whole school seemed to be immersed in the victory buzz. My close friends and I decided to go to a party held by a fraternity off campus to celebrate. We knew about this party because Alexandro, a friend of mine, was dating a member of the fraternity. When I got there, I could feel the crazy atmosphere. Everyone was drunk and enthusiastically cheering. I was no exception, having a few drinks and dancing with my friends in the bustling atmosphere. In the middle of the excitement, I suddenly realized that my phone had run out of battery and was in Alexandro's bag. I told my friends that I had to go to the bathroom, and they promised to wait for me near the DJ booth. While I was in the bathroom, I suddenly heard a loud shout from a member of the fraternity. "The police are here!" Immediately, everyone started to panic. running everywhere. I rushed out of the house and saw many police cars parked outside with red lights flashing. People were pushing each other to find a way out. Some were stopped by the police, while others tried to run away. In my panic, I realized that I had lost my friends and could not find them in the crowd. I decided to go back to the dorm by myself, even though I did not remember the way back. The more I walked, the colder I felt. Even though it was only October, the temperature had dropped to 37 degrees Fahrenheit, about 3 degrees Celsius. I was tired, still a little drunk, so I decided to find somewhere to rest and warm up. I saw a building that looked like one of the school's academic buildings, so I approached it, opened the door, and entered. The inside of the building was dark, with only a few dim lights from the exit signs. After a few minutes, I sobered up and realized that this was not an academic building, but an old warehouse. The silence and the gloomy atmosphere made me feel uneasy. I tried to leave, but the door was locked. Why was the door locked from the inside when I just opened it? A feeling of anxiety rose in my heart. I walked through another door nearby, hoping to find an exit, but what I found was another small room, illuminated by a dim red light. Inside the room, there were chains hanging from the ceiling and steam rising from an old machine that hummed. It was like a scene from a horror movie. I tried to open the door again to leave this place, but the door was also locked. Panicking, I sat down on the floor, not daring to breathe. Just then, I heard the door slam and heavy footsteps. My heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest when I realized someone was approaching. I tried to stay quiet, opened the door gently, and sneaked into another room. Inside the room were hanging chains and thick steam, creating a more terrifying scene than ever. The footsteps continued to get closer, louder and faster. Suddenly, I saw a window. With no other choice, I kicked it hard until it broke. I jumped down, not realizing that I had fallen from a height of about 3 meters, landing on 2 trash cans. It was painful, but there was no time to think. I quickly got up and hid under a row of pine trees nearby. When I looked back, I saw a figure standing by the broken window, looking around as if searching for me. My whole body was numb with fear. I tried to move as quietly as possible across the street and started running. I kept running until I realized I was near the dormitory. When I got there, I saw my friends waiting for me. They were worried about me because I had been gone for nearly 4 hours. The next day, I told my friends the whole story. Everyone was shocked when I told them. Then I found out that the building was an abandoned warehouse many years ago. The feeling of horror came again when I realized that the person in the building was not a policeman or a security guard, but maybe someone who was lurking. Thinking about it still makes me shiver. If I hadn't been calm and quick-witted to escape, I probably wouldn't be alive to tell this story.